Yeah, my name is Otis Amy.
My name is Terana Amy.
We have been together for 25 years, got together just before I came out to Sacramento State to play football. So, whatever year it is, that's how long we've been together. And we've now been married for 15 years. I guess a little bit about me. I'm a former professional sports player, fulfilled my childhood dream of playing in the NFL for the 49ers. But fast forward, now I'm in full time ministry, run a faith based nonprofit called FCA, Fellowship of Christian Athletes. I'm on staff at Midtown Church as the associate pastor, have my own speaking company as I'm building that up as well.
So I am a physical therapist assistant. I work for Kaiser Permanente. I've been a therapist for about 16 years. I love it. I currently work part-time to allow a little bit more time for my husband's travel and our children as they're getting big and involved in a lot of things. I can kind of start and then you can chime in as to how you remember it happening. Otis and I are high school sweethearts. So we met on our high school campus. He was always my friend, and I was new to the school district. I lived in Oakland, and the school's in Union City, so it's about 25 miles away, a good 30-minute drive. I used to take the BART to school. I didn't have very many friends when I first came to Logan. Otis was an entrepreneurial spirit. I should have known then. He was selling candy
And low
like
pops and
different kind of candy than the other kids were selling for his football gear. He would sell it to me at first, but then after a while, he started giving them to me for free. He would give me free AirHeads every day. And then that's how he became my friend. Then I think as time went on, then he shot his shot. He and I kind of dated or whatever. We talked for a little bit and it fizzled out as high school things do. And I think I was very intimidated by him being an upperclassman, me being just younger. I kind of did some things to push him away. I was just like, I don't think I want a boyfriend. And, I just kind of made his life a little miserable. And finally, I realized we ended up running track together. I realized like, oh, he's such a nice guy. He's a good boy. And then he had the whole James Logan staff just on his side. My English teacher was his sophomore English teacher, and she said, "Is Otis Amy your boyfriend?" And I said, "No." She said, "He's such a smart boy." And I was like, okay, well, maybe I need to give him a shot. I signed his yearbook and I put my phone number in his yearbook, and then he ended up.
And so that's the story I usually tell is she disrespectfully like in Sharpie wrote whatever message over all kind of people's photos. I don't remember anything that the message said. I just remember seeing the phone number. I called her and then we went on our first date and been together ever since. So I picked her up from Oakland, brought her back to Union City. We watched Shaft. This is like when Jeffrey Wright was Peoples, one of the most amazing actors, and Samuel Jackson was in it. It was Shaft. And then we've been together ever since. And that was 2000. So technically our anniversary of being together is July 1st, 2000.
That sounds creepy. It was more like, hey, I know you want some candy. You want some free candy? I'm like, hey, sure.
Bible says if you want friends, show yourself friendly.
Yes, very much so.
I mean, for me, if you've heard me preach more than 3 times, then you'll hear me at some point reference my mother. To this day, if she visits, she models what it looks like to follow Christ and cry out for the Lord and really trust him regardless of situations and circumstances. And so that's what was modeled for me, even though my dad in and out of jail, but my dad was pretty much, he was present, just not emotionally, not spiritually, went to church with us, but didn't go in the church. For me, it was my mom, seeing her always depend and trust on the Lord, regardless of what's going on, and seeing the fruit of that. Like my dad sends me a text message every single morning with the scripture, some kind of encouragement. If I ask my dad at any point in the day, hey, what are you doing today? I'm going to Bible study, or we're in the book of John today. It's such a blessing. It was my mother's faith that was a catalyst for my faith and development.
Yeah, his parents' relationship is something that is very special. His dad also sends me a text every day. He sends it to all of the daughter-in-laws, but he sends them like individually to us. And so I feel that it's just for me. Beside the point, I did not grow up with any marriage kind of to look at and a modeled marriage to reference, honestly. I kind of, in the mindset that I had before God found me, I was kind of willing to maybe have Otis's baby before I would marry him. And because that's just all I saw. My parents aren't married of that generation. None of my like aunts and uncles are really married. So since the inception of our marriage, I would say Otis's brother, Charles, and his wife, Stephanie. She and I are very close. She was my matron of honor in our wedding, but they just are awesome, an awesome couple. They're, a couple of God, and we grew up with them. They kind of were started dating when Otis and I started dating. They just model a lot of love, and they communicate in ways that I never seen before. And I see that their marriage, like, you can see the love and affection for one another and just the planning of all of their children. They are really a definition, in my opinion, of like doing something together in the name of the Lord. I would say Charles and Stephanie.
I mean, I think, I just preached the message about it and recorded it again. I think me making sure that I'm dialed in and really abiding in the Lord, it challenges me to grow and develop and love my wife like Christ loved the church, which lends itself to is strengthening our intimacy. But like even just last night, I was away for 2 days. I came home, then I preached last night. And so text my wife when I was done, hey, you want some pizza? She was like, yes. So I said, hey, when you get home, she likes to clean, nonstop. So I'm like, when you get home, can you shut everything down? Let's just have some us time. And so being mindful of that, like, it doesn't necessarily have to involve that, going all the way there. Sometimes it does, but we've developed such a close and intimate relationship that we just enjoy being around each other, being together, just talking and catching up. The other thing that I'm trying to get back to having more regularly, hopefully at least twice a month, is just going on dates again.
I think that as our lives have changed and just time and children added into the mix, I feel like a way of keeping our intimacy is really making sure that we're communicating, to be quite honest with you. If we're communicating and my needs are being met that way, then it kind of opens up time, first of all, for us to spend with one another. And, we've been in communication all day, and that kind of allows us to, like, wow, we've been able to talk even as we're not in physical proximity. We're texting each other throughout the day, letting each other, we go through every night, like, what our schedule is going to be. Sometimes letting each other know, like, hey, I have, this today, that today, but I also have time for X, Y, and Z this evening. But if things are, again, if I'm communicating, hey, I've got this, the children have that, and my house is a mess, I am a mess as well. So if I come home and the dishes are done and things are put away, then that's even more time.
Yeah, just being even more, just piggybacking on what my wife just shared. The communication, I think, is top 3 for sure. But even yesterday, like, just being, upfront about what your expectations are, it lends itself to opening up to have more dialogue and discussion. So I told her last night, like, hey, babe, I've been gone for 2 days. I need some time with you. You know what I'm saying? And she knew what I meant, right? And so we were able to, to make that happen. I think a lot of people, maybe for us because we've been together so long, but even with that, there's still things that we're navigating through. And I think this will always be something we're always journeying through and discovering and figuring new things out.
As kids can open doors and do, things that they couldn't do when they were toddlers. And we just have to find ways and time for one another that work for us in this particular stage in our lives.
One of the biggest lessons that I've learned, and, you guys know some of our struggles in the past few years, is I would think, make sure that you're going through some kind of marital counseling, which you guys are involved in, having someone to hold you accountable. And then communication in the beginning, expectations. Even a couple that we're talking to, some of the things they haven't thought about is like, how are you going to discipline kids? Some of them aren't thinking about that. What are the sexual expectations? What are we going to do with our money? We're going to have our own account. So I think a lot of couples don't think through those things, and that will save you a lot of time and trouble at the beginning of your marriage.
And I would say trusting your partner fully in all of you, like not keeping things from your partner, and just trusting them with your raw emotion, with your, your feelings about whatever it is that you are going through, and being able to express that. And I think as a partner, receiving communication in that way, being able to compartmentalize certain things. So sometimes he's able to tell me things and I can't take them all personally. Sometimes there are things that he maybe even frustrated with at work that come home and I'm taking it as something personal. And over the years, I think we've grown and realized, like, oh no, this is just something that he needs to dive through. I don't need to necessarily be, give him an answer.
You're talking about me. What I've learned, this has been the biggest area of of growth for me and probably has benefited us the most in our marriage is me communicating. But I've learned, like, coming home from work or from ministry, and sometimes it's like, oh my goodness. And I have to learn how to preface things like, hey, babe, let's have a discussion. I need you to help me think through this. Or, hey, babe, I'm just going to vent right now. I need to share something. I don't need you to fix it. And so that's even recent conversations of learning that for me.
I'm trying to think of two like things that we did early on, because Otis wasn't as in tune with his feelings as he is now. And so just as a young man trying to provide for his family and not really knowing exactly what to do, marriages don't come with instructions. I think on my part, just asking a lot of questions and trying to get to know how my partner, even though we had dated for 10 years, we were, best of friends, there were still in our marriage things that I didn't know, and really trying to figure those things out communication wise, because there would be certain things that I didn't necessarily like as we're, in our early years of marriage. Like, I don't know, he didn't take out the trash right. He didn't fold my towels right. Whatever it was, that was my own hangups. But me saying to him like, hey, I really like if you fold my towels like this. And him being like, well, at the end of the day, if I fold them, they're folded, right? And that's the point. I'm like, dang, they are. You're right. But diving through some of that stuff and being open and honest with that conversation, and not being afraid to talk to my partner about towels or about whatever it is, like trusting them with my emotion. Even if he does think it's dumb, he's my partner and he's open and willing to listen to at least what I have to say. I've gotten there. Now I could care less. We have 3 kids.
You hear me?
Hey, it's in there. You're right. It's probably a part of our upbringing, because my grandmother, if you did not fold it right, you had to do it again. If you didn't make your bed right, you had to do it again. See, your upbringing. That's another part of communication. Like, this is how I've always done stuff. And guess what? We are a new family now. You leave and cleave. This is how we go do it now. So that stuff, it's a big deal.
We recently just talked about pet peeves. And what are some things that really kind of grind your gears or something?
We did.
We did. Remember, so for me, it's being late.
Yeah.
I cannot stand it. I cannot stand it at all. Barring an emergency, I'm going to be on time to stuff. Like, it just is what it is. And my framework for this is like, I golfed this morning. There's no way I'm going to show up late. I show up 30 minutes before the tee time to warm up. If I'm going to a Kings game, I'm not going to be late. If I'm going to other places, I won't be late. So how dare framework of church, how dare I walk into the house of the Lord late? Like, what is that saying? And so for me and my loved ones, I'm like, we're not going to show up late to things.
But I'm late everywhere I go. Legitimately late.
Hence the problem.
Yes. So I always think I have a little bit more time to clean something all the time, or a little bit more time to get ready, or a little bit more time. And don't let me be really on time or early, because then I'm really going to do something else, like 3 other things that could have gotten done.
So she thinks pulling up to 2125 19th Street at 10:30 is on time. Needs to be in the building.
I am
kids checked in
on time.
When the bumper video starts, you're already in.
Because in my mind, I'm thinking, I'm standing here watching this bumper video that I'm really not paying attention to, and I could have gotten this done, that done in those 3 minutes. I could have did 3 other things. I'm working on it though, because it's important to my husband. Okay.
I'll share. I mean, now that I've preached about it and put it on a podcast as well. 2 years ago. It's crazy that it's already been that long. Just going through the fact that there's no such thing as casual sex, and God had put on my heart, like, I need to tell my wife about something that happened, I think about 22, 23 years ago, at a time when I was being a knucklehead and, a period where we weren't together. And I thought I was just having some fun and having casual sex with this young lady, super random, no big deal. She's just some random, girl, and she ends up dating one of my friends on the football team. We all end up going to, be in a relationship with each other. And God put on my heart, you need to tell her. So there was a period where we were going through marriage counseling. And unfortunately, the advice that I got then was to not share this with her. Back then, before we got married, I wanted to come clean, enter into it the right way. So I've been holding on to this for a while and thinking no big deal, right? They know, he knows, like, cool, this is something that happened. But God put on my heart to tell her. And so I did. I told her. I even feel like God gave me a vision for like what was going to be the fruit of it, and doing things like this and helping. Even when I preached, people came up to me and shared stuff that they were dealing with and were like, thank you so much. Even people were telling me, don't preach about that. But I was like, no, I know I need to share this. And so the afternoon that I told her, it seemed like it was okay. She hugged me and we were crying. You know, that night she came down and it finally registered what had happened. And I'll let her share. But yeah, me thinking that, you know, you could just have casual sex in your younger years and it won't be any consequences or repercussions. 20 something years later, it got to the point to where, you know, we don't even mention the word divorce in our home. And that's the first time it happened. We really had to wrestle through that. I'll let my wife share.
Well, I mean, to answer the question was the disagreement and how we kind of overcame it.
Yeah.
Obviously, the disagreement was withholding just information from me for so many years.
Yeah.
Right. And it kind of causing me to have these feelings of inadequacy, like, oh, I must not be your real best friend and wife, because why would you hold something like this for me? Why would you keep this for me for this long? And then it just, as it just kind of got intertwined, and our lives are so connected to, you know, these people, you know, unfortunately or fortunately, however you want to look at it, the woman that he did sleep with is one of my now friends. And so it was odd. And I was like, how do I navigate through this? And I'm a very direct individual, and how I would handle something is not how Otis handled something. And the biggest lesson for me was that, like, I would never do X, Y, and Z. I would do this and I would do, but I am not the standard, right? Jesus Christ is the standard. So I feel like what navigating through this disagreement of withholding information from one another, and us, of course, diving through our own issues with it. But I've learned to really remember who my husband is, and he is, you know, a child of God, and he's going to make mistakes. He's going to do things that aren't, you know, how I would do something. We're two different people coming from two different places of brokenness, and we're trying to put our broken pieces together. Like I was saying, like, I think the take home for me was that really anybody is capable of doing anything, and understanding that, okay, if you say that you are going to vow this commitment, how do you work through these things, and how to allow God to work on you in them, and really giving it, surrendering it to the Lord fully. Because it, you know, sounds great, like, yes, I do, sickness and health. And then when somebody gets sick, like, sorry, just kidding. So really having to really put those words into act.
Part of the question that you asked, how do we work through it? And so we got counseling. You know, we had sat with you guys once. Pastor Rich was a regular voice in our lives. But for me, being the offender is really seeking the Lord and saying, God, how do you want me to respond? And taking extreme ownership. So there was times in my flesh I wanted to say, like, babe, this was 23 years ago, but never did I dare say that. It was like, you better just sit in this. You better just sit with her. You better let her feel whatever she wants to feel. You did it. So I think that's a big thing that maybe someone needs to hear. Don't try to rationalize it. Like, you know, I did what I did, and I now have to deal with the consequences of that, and love her through her emotional roller coaster as God is challenging her on some things. And by the grace of God, what God revealed to me before I told her this, it's all things that are now coming to pass. And so I think one thing she didn't mention was like her having to remember who she knows me to be. Never raised my voice at her, never disrespected her, never cheated on her, none of those things. And right. So like in her time with God, I think God was showing her those things and helping her.
No, you're good.
Oh, helping her,
really close to my face.
You know, helping her heal.
Sorry to interrupt with that, but yeah, I think, like I was saying that, or like Otis was saying, rather, being reminded of who I married, who this man that I love so dearly, who is my best friend in the whole world. We have these beautiful children and such an awesome marriage and testimony to God's grace and mercy, and something that he did when he was a 20-year-old kid, you know what I mean, doesn't discredit who he is now. And I think for couples, sometimes when he didn't cheat on me because he broke up with me at the time. But I know my initial response, just being honest in my flesh, was like, oh, okay, I can go out and do this type of stuff too. But then the Lord working with me through that, right? Like, no, you don't get to do that. It doesn't work like that. It's not a tit for tat, right? We're in a marriage, you guys. This is not high school. You're not kids, and there's a reason that you didn't know this in your 20s, because had I known it in my 20s, we probably wouldn't have the foundation that we have now, because I probably would have been on a more vengeful, spiteful mindset. And that's, I think, a lot of times in relationships, someone does something to get back at them, and then it becomes this domino effect of something that could have been really, really great, but ends up falling by the wayside because of not allowing the person to make mistakes in their own right, and not being honest about your own mistakes and your own issues that you have.
Yeah, I firmly believe by the grace of God. I just preached about the woman with the issue of blood. I would have gone however long I needed to go, because this woman has been with me through everything.
It was good, I think, throughout the time. He would affirm me in the times where I would, because it took me back to a lot of things, and as you've been with someone for 25 years, you guys have gone through things, and we're different people. I'm not the same person that I was when I was 15 years old when I started dating Otis. Even in college, when I was 22 something years old, I'm not the same person that I was, and having to like kind of open up old wounds and different things, and just kind of the cliche of like I was dating a professional athlete, and some of the ridicule that I faced, like, well, he's 3,000 miles away, and this, that, and the third, and just different things that I would get from other females. And even when I was in high school, I am 2 grades younger than Otis, and my family being like, oh, don't you go to the same college as this and follow that boy. You do your own thing. You make sure that you're not, you have your own plan, et cetera, et cetera. And then Otis being drafted, like, oh, your meal ticket, et cetera, et cetera. So a lot of those things that I like endured and were ridiculed about. And then I, find this out, and it opening up a lot of those old wounds, but Otis continuing to affirm me, continuing to remind me of like, it's okay to feel how you're feeling, continually apologizing, continually letting me go through what I needed to go through, and reminding me too of whose I am. If I needed time to do something, like, no, babe, like, you are a daughter of the King, and he's sovereign, and being able to remind me again of who I serve, and what our vision for our marriage was, what we entered into. Because at the end of the day, when you are arguing about something big or small, you love each other, and you want to be reminded of that. Because at the end of the day, like, if my towels aren't folded this way, I still love you, even if they're not folded the right way. So a friend of mine I haven't seen, my best friend actually, came from across the country. She lives in Boston, and she was like, I'm so proud of you. And I don't want to tear up, but we've been friends for such a long time, and she obviously had known where Otis and I have come from and been a part of our journey. And she said, do you sit back and like, dang, this is what we did? And I was like, not as often as I should. Having grown up in the way that I did, I feel like I'm always waiting for the other shoe to drop. I'm always trying to prepare for something bad to happen. And sometimes I don't take a, step back and like, gosh, look how far we have come. Every now and then we'll say that to one another, but I think it has to be intentional for me to celebrate our wins. Like, hey, let's go out, let's do something, and honestly, we're such good friends. I just want to spend time with him without my children. I mean, I love them, I really do, but I want to spend time with Otis without my children.
It's a good question. It's something for me to really think through later. I don't think I do a good job of even thinking about the wins. In a pastoral role where I'm counseling people and talking to other young men and hearing about other people's marital problems, to be honest, it just makes me more grateful. Hope that sounds kind of bad. It's a reminder of like, man, how blessed I am to have this woman. It's like a regular thought in my mind, like just even internal, God, like, thank you. And I regularly stare at my kids too. Just like, wow, you use us to create these 3 little chocolate human beings. And just the opportunity that we have to steward them and pour into them is a celebration in and of itself. But I know I can do a better job of like stopping and taking moments to, it's kind of like what I alluded to earlier, is like just getting back to having more regular date nights.
I think too, we do a good job of tell each other this stuff all the time. It's not like we'll have these long periods of just being in the battlefield and we finally won a battle and then now we celebrate. We could get a random text throughout the day like, hey,
Yeah, I don't go on Instagram and make some long posts. I just tell her direct.
I love you. I'm thinking about you. You looked pretty today, whatever it was. And I think in the closeness of even when we're studying, like, and, you know, as a pastor, he's preparing for sermons often. And I'm like, well, this is what I got today. What did you get? Like some of those things, I think just keeping that dialogue open reminds us like, dang, I love you so much. Like you're my favorite person. And it is something that's a constant conversation. So I think that maybe those are some of the things that we do to celebrate our wins every day. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but never categorize it. Never really thought about it. Yeah. Yeah, so the answer is no. I'll let my wife really answer this because, praise God, we're in an amazing place. And I was just sharing this with some other couples, like exactly what God showed me is happening. And me and my wife are so tight right now. But for her, I think there's still some things that I don't know, you know, if she would say that she's fully healed. And I can't speak to what's going on in her heart. And if that's a date in 2025, that I don't know.
I guess like celebrating the most recent hurdle, I think in our conversations can allude to just being grateful that I know. I'm trying to think. I don't know. I know shortly after we did go on a work trip, and I ended up going with him. And it was without our children, but we were able to just get a little bit of time away and just, you know, kind of reconnect, I guess, when we went to Monterey.
I mean, we're going to Hawaii.
We're going to Hawaii, just the two of us, the end of the month. Again, work trip, made a couple trip. But I think, again, that's like nothing like huge or one big event to like celebrate this moment. I think in turn, we're being more intentional about like, okay, we're having Friday morning dates, or our Friday, we called it the Goonies time, because like just referencing the 1980s movie, The Goonies, but just time with one another each week that we have, you know, even if it's a quick second, like I'll meet you here, let's meet up and just have coffee really quick and go. So that way we are, you know, just that is our celebratory, like, I'm glad that we have this time together. Yeah. Let's make more of that. And that's how we're celebrating this recent hurdle.
I mean, I've actually thought about this. There's one thing, it's funny. So open gym, right? I love to hoop. My ankles kind of messed up from playing football, but I remember going to open gym like maybe 4 months ago, and we're picking teams. And I'm usually first round draft pick if there's 30 cats in there. And someone was like, I got OG over there. And I was like, who, me? You talking about me? Oh, I didn't skip unk status. I'm like, geez. So I'm like, man, I'm not skinny anymore. I'm not like young anymore. But a milestone for me was just like realizing that I'm a grown man, and there's people now that we need to be training up. So I would say for the younger couples, like really be in tune with God and be obedient to what he's asking you to do. So I'm an introvert by nature, but when I'm doing something, I'm all in. And so every other month we have younger couples, whether they're newly married, engaged, over the house, and it's been dating and serious, like like Monte and Kennedy. And so we've done this. We had the second one a couple Fridays ago, and it's just been so rewarding having them over. Not any strict agenda, just having some food. We have a time where they can ask questions, play some games together, create community for these younger midtown couples. And so for me, that's been a big milestone. Like, you guys were this young couple. Now you've been married. Now the next step is you need to start pouring into the next ones up.
So that is a good way to celebrate a milestone, to just pour into the next. I know my focus has definitely been, as far as discipleship, pouring into my 3 disciples that I birthed, but I guess a way of celebrating milestones. I mean, we do trips. I mean, I just celebrated my 40th birthday, so I had a party. I will do a party. So I like to eat. We like to go out to eat and celebrate that way. But every great while we'll, do something big. We don't, just save and work like ants all day until we die. We do take time, even as a family, to just celebrate our anniversary, or just every other summer doing something like big where it's, us. So we really can appreciate the sacrifices that, our children have made. Just being pastors' kids is a tough thing sometimes, and sacrifices that my husband has made for work and different things, and myself with time, et cetera, but choosing time and taking time away to relax. And that is how we are able to celebrate some milestones, I guess.
That's good. I mean, for me, my playbook, my standard is the word of God. And so success as a couple. I mean, as soon as you said that, I'm thinking about the pyramid, right? And so that's how can I have such an abiding and intimate relationship with the Lord and bring my wife and my family along on that journey, and then that will trickle onto everybody else that I'm in relationship with, or everyone else I'm in relationship with. So I guess that's my definition of being a disciple that makes a disciple, that's making disciples, right? In every context that I'm in.
Yeah. I would say kind of the same thing. A tree is known by its fruit. And that, to me, the success being your fruit, not even our literal fruit like our children, but some of the things that they say. So when I was a little girl and I would play with Barbies, my teen Barbie, Skipper, would be the mom of the little baby, right? She's a teen mom, because that's all I saw. My children, all they talk about is when they have a husband and when they have a wife and when they have kids, and how their kids are going to do X, Y, and Z. And my parents sometimes are like, or my dad, I should say, like, no, don't talk about being pregnant. I'm like, Dad, they're not talking about how to get there. They are talking about the success of a family, because that's literally what they see every single day, right? See us hug and kiss every morning. They see us, like embrace one another, laugh. That's all that they see. We could be having a not completely it's not aggressive, but we're maybe like arguing over sports or like a game, and they're like, don't fight. We're like, are you serious? This is not a fight. We're just talking. But they're so used to seeing the happiness and the love between us that anything else, they're like, oh my gosh, what was that? We're like, no, that was called a game, and your mom is very competitive, stuff like that. But I would say that defining the success is the fruit that you leave. And for us, particularly, the success of our children, and them being able to thrive in this world of chaos, I would say, is success.
I mean, I gave you a bigger definition, but my very short and simple definition is that the way that I live my life, that my wife would come to the realization, even if she never verbalizes it, that no one loved, cared for her, and served her better outside of Jesus Christ than me.
Absolutely.
I'm grateful for the invitation. I mean, just listen to the Lord. I'm talking to anyone. Listen to the Lord. I remember Pastor Turner was walking through the lobby, and I just overheard him saying something like, I wish there was community for younger married couples. I just heard him say, he wasn't even talking to me. And then instantly I just started praying about it. And, here we are, already having had a couple of times where we invited people over to our homes. And so, listen to the Lord, be obedient, and just trust him and watch what he'll do with your obedience. The water doesn't turn to wine unless they're obedient to him saying, fill it up, even if it doesn't make sense.
So we are now.
Yeah. I was looking at it earlier today. Yeah. Yep. Got you. Yeah. Appreciate what you guys are doing. Valuable.
Yeah. Because, Thank you. All right. God bless you guys.
All right. Love you guys.
God bless you guys.